is the Mindset Geek from GoToL.com, and welcome back. And this is a very special episode of the podcast because it is my first ever guest episode. I'm very excited and a little bit nervous, but delighted to welcome Farnoosh here. I'm so excited. I'm going to let her introduce herself because that always works better. Farnoosh, hello, welcome.
Hi, Elle. Hi. Thank you so much for having me, your first guest. What an honor. So let's have a good time. No need to be nervous because then I'm nervous and then you know what happens. So to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm Farnoosh Brock. I live in the US and I come from a technical background, many years in engineering, what have you, and also a corporate background, many years in corporate America. And 7 years ago, I quit my job. I started my own company. And a year later, I hired my husband. And we've been entrepreneurs ever since, never looked back. And I'm giving you the nutshell version. And I tried a number of things because I didn't know what I was going to do. So we explored, we got creative. I've written recipe books. I've got programs. I've done life coaching. I've done a lot of business, career, leadership coaching. Today, I'm a little more focused.
Right.
I am mostly focused and passionate about working with small businesses, small business owners, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs who are established. You know, they've been doing their thing for a while. They're very good at it. They know they're good at it. And yet they have apprehension or just distaste for selling their services at prices that are deemed worthy of what they are offering. And so I got really passionate about this and I ended up writing a book about this topic and also have been working on sharing mindset shifts on this topic and applications that you can bring to your business to where you actually stop selling, you drop the whole selling agenda, and you grow that profitable, sustainable business through genuine serving.
Sounds amazing.
So, there you go. It's a little bit about me. Is that sufficient, Elle? Or would you
That's
like
amazing. No, that's brilliant. And I don't know if you just heard I'm hoping that ping that you just heard did not translate because I'm recording this episode via my computer. Of course, my husband just texted me. So
I didn't hear anything.
Well, there we are. So I need to mention it, but never mind. He was telling me that the oven is on. He's cooking tea. There you go. Getting it real. But I've started reading bits of your book because you very kindly sent me a copy, but I'm a slow reader with juicy books. But I did love like the mindset stuff, as is no surprise to you. I find really exciting, which is why when you reached out and said, let's connect, I was, yes, you'd be the perfect person to have as my first ever guest. Tell me more then about how you went around that shift between, because everyone says you've got to learn how to sell, and is it just semantics or is there a real shift? Tell me more about what that looks like.
Oh, sure. I mean, this all comes, first of all, from firsthand experience. You know, I come from the technical background, the corporate background. I'd never run a business in my life, and I knew I needed to sell and market. So I learned every traditional selling and marketing tactic, and I implemented it with some success, I would say mediocre success, but I didn't like it. It didn't feel good. And I felt like it was the necessary evil, like we say in the business. It had to be done. I mean, we're all intelligent enough to know we have to sell, otherwise we're running a charity. So, right? And you know, charities are fine, but we're talking about running profitable businesses, which was my goal. And so the shift was, first of all, it was that experience of doing the selling traditionally, Elle, and realizing that this is just not feeling good. There has to be a better way, but I didn't know what that was. And I'm lucky, a few years ago, I stumbled upon some role models in the coaching business where they talked about a completely different approach to speaking to our prospects. So our prospects are people who have yet to buy from us. They may never buy from us, but they are interested in what we have at some level. And so how do we have that discovery conversation, or, you know, we have different terms for that, but that initial conversation with them without pitching, without selling, without feeling sleazy, and yet without letting opportunity go by, because we are here to do our work, to offer and service, and to get compensated appropriately if there is a good fit. So that whole process of, this is not working, is there a better way, took a few years, and then stumbling upon a system that seemed too good to be true. And so I was extremely skeptical, as you might be if you're listening.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. Serving sounds good, but I am running a real business here.
Yeah.
And then putting it into practice. So I was in a mastermind at the time. Actually, I know you're over in the UK. My two mastermind peers, one is in the UK, one is in Scotland. And then my other friend is in Seattle. And so the four of us were masterminds for a number of years. And we decided to put these methodologies, this mindset shift around approaching the conversations from a serving perspective to practice.
Brilliant.
And I have to tell you, we were shocked because we also had premium prices. So we didn't drop our prices. We actually more than doubled or tripled them because we were undercharging. And
did you raise your prices before you started the experiment and before you started
yes,
these? Wow, that was brave.
It's very brave because we didn't expect it to work at all. We were just like, okay, let's just see. And I don't mean to raise prices. This may get misunderstood for the sake of raising prices.
Yeah.
Your prices need to be appropriate to the value you deliver.
Sure, yeah.
And so we knew we were undercharging based on the results we were creating for people and the impact we were having. So you may be charging the right prices, you may just not be having that conversation in a way that feels good and effective. But yes, we did, and we experimented, and it was amazing how well it worked and how the caliber of the clients that we brought on board changed, how much we ended up loving the coaching.
Nice. And
how much easier it was, and I talk about this counterintuitive concept in the book, how much easier it was to sell. The selling happens organically. Higher premium packages than the tiny little packages we were killing ourselves to sell.
Wow.
Right. So does that answer your question?
It does answer my question. Yeah, it sounds really exciting. I'm glad you mentioned the book because I was going to ask you, because as we'll tell you at the end, Farnoosh has a book out, and I mentioned it, I've started reading it. It's brilliant. So that's the bit I haven't got to yet. So do you actually go into details of what that looks like in the book?
Yes, I do.
Amazing. I need to read that bit.
Yes, because I think, theory is great, and we hear a lot about serving, being of service. And yet, I think for me, I just wanted to know, okay, how?
Yes.
Tell me how do I shift what I do? So I go into it as much as I felt I could muster in a book, as much as my publishers allowed, in a 220-page book or whatever it came out to be, to where it's actually applicable actions to take to change the dialogue. Like, what do you say in that dialogue, and what do you stop saying?
Yeah.
To come from that place.
Excellent. Because what I find really frustrating, you said some books in our industry, and I'm not going to name names, but I'm sure you've read them, where they go into, like you say, all the theory, and then you're left going, okay, but now what? And they go, to find out how to do this, go and buy my really expensive program. I'm like, really? Come on. So I'm really glad. And I'm sure that you help people implement this one-on-one as well. I'm not saying you don't, but it's really exciting and refreshing when an author goes, yes, this is what you need to do. This is how you can do it. It's brilliant. One of the things that I know you do talk about in the book is, and reason I'm bringing it to us from the wider context, is this idea of overcoming rejection. So one of the things that people get, I know for me, you go on those, we'll call them discovery calls for want of a better phrase, because we both know what we're talking about with that phrase. You go on these discovery calls and you may be a bit nervous and you want to do your best, and then there's the back and forth, will they, won't they, and ultimately for whatever reason they say no, it's not the right time or whatever. What tips, hints, tricks, mindset shifts have you got for people? Because I think this does have a wider, we all deal with rejection, not just in business, in life as well. So tell us a little bit about your advice around that. That'd be brilliant.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up, because now we're getting real and practical. So I call my coach, my business coach, who was instrumental in also helping me here, she would call that an objection. So you're in conversation, you've already discovered, explored, maybe there's a fit, and at some point you have put a proposal forth. And I talk about, all of that as well. But let's go to the part where they're like, Elle, that's great. We love to work with you, but out of our budget, not the right timing. And so that is an objection. And objections are great, fabulous opportunities for you to probe deeper, not to shy away and try to hang up really quickly and, oh my God, this is getting awkward. No.
Yeah. or my favorite one, I'll follow up with you via email, because email is so much safer. We can hide behind email, can't we?
Hide, exactly. So at that point, and by that point, you know, the mindset I talk about is, excuse me, is you drop your sales agenda before you enter these conversations.
Sure.
And I don't care what you say, we all have a sales agenda.
Yes.
It may not be apparent, but at the back of our minds, we want to get a yes. If you drop that and you come from a place of service, which means in that conversation, if you have agreed to come together with this person, hopefully you've done some pre-filtering, like, I think there's a good fit, I'm interested in helping them.
Yeah.
At that point, you are of service to them, which means you can check with yourself, am I serving or am I selling? So when you get an objection, you need to be curious and ask questions.
Okay.
One question, simplest question that I learned to ask is, what makes you say that?
Okay.
So John, you've shared your concerns. What makes you say that? Tell me more. And you can rephrase it in your own words, but basically you want to go deeper, and here is why. 90% of those objections are not the truth.
Yes.
When people tell you it's outside of their budget, I cannot tell you the fascinating things that have happened to me with people who I would have said it's outside of their budget, but they have investing tens of thousands of dollars because they wanted what I had to give them. And vice versa, people I could have said this would be a drop in the bucket for them. They weren't willing to invest a penny. Right. So, and that's another mindset. Don't give yourself permission to judge people's financial status for what they're willing to invest.
That's a big one, I think, as entrepreneurs. You know, we tend to, I think we do it from one of two positions, from my experience at least, is either if we're doing something and if the way we're serving people is something that comes very naturally to us, it comes like, well, why would they pay for that? Because we can do it so easily. Sure. Or there's, like you say, you put your own money stories, I guess, into other people's. So yeah, no, that's very valuable advice.
Absolutely. For sure. And you know, I find that if it really comes down to affordability, then you have options, because you've got to the root cause of that objection, and you have options. You may choose to offer a payment plan. You may choose to offer another investment option, and never call it the cost or price of working with me. There is language change for you right there. Always call it an investment. If you believe it's an investment that I come and work with you, call it as such. Sure. An investment means I put money forth and I gain so much more, not just financially, but in other intangible measures from working with you. Yeah. So shifts in dialogue. But yeah, I want to make sure I address the objection and rejection. Another thing I talk about is you are not being rejected, because this isn't about you. Sure. And we take it so personally. Yeah. And it's harder said than done. I get it. But I'm the most sensitive person you'll ever meet. My mother will tell you that. I'm working on it. But you know, my husband would say, well, the objection is about them. And if you're serving, you get curious and you try to help them understand their own objection. Because most people don't even know why they are turning down a service. Sure. So you can bring your coaching abilities right here and help them understand, is that really why I'm saying no? Or am I afraid of XYZ? Yeah. And you know what I found? One last thing, and I'll turn it over to you. People are so afraid that it might work.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one.
You know, that if they put the investment forth, they have to raise to this level they haven't before, taking action, making things happen, going outside their comfort zone. Yeah. And in the end, it might actually work and they become the thing they want. And we like to stay in our comfort zone.
Oh, totally.
Staying away from success, which is so counterintuitive, but I've done it.
Yes, I've done it. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think sometimes we take it personally as a rejection of us, but actually sometimes it's not that people don't trust us. They don't trust themselves sometimes, that they even will do the work. You know, they have to acknowledge, okay, in order to do this, I've got to do this work. Am I actually going to do that? Which obviously as coaches, we can support them in that, but you know, so, fascinating. A thought I had actually it's fascinating. I was, as you were talking, contemplating the experience that we had, for example, and you know, you talked about how there's always a sales agenda, even when we don't acknowledge it. But I was thinking about this podcast episode as an example of that. You reached out to me because candidly, you've got a book that you want to share. But actually, I can tell from our dialogue, even if you didn't sell a single copy of your book to anybody in my audience, it wouldn't matter, because you're approaching this from a position of, look, I've got this, I am serving. So I think that's actually really exciting, and you can see it in action.
Thank you. And my book might not be a good fit for everyone listening. I mean, they may take something away and that would be enough.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, my mission is to change sales conversations, Elle, because they are nauseating. The way they teach us to have sales conversation. Now, there are some good methods. There are some, I'm not saying everything, but in general, it's just nauseating what you think you have to do. And so my bigger mission is, can we shift this conversation and still run highly profitable businesses, still fulfill our dreams and our own needs? But yeah, thank you for saying that.
No, it was interesting. I have a follow-up question, actually, because so you talked about how, and again, we did this prior to this interview. You said, you know, we look this idea of good fit. So you don't just jump on the phone with everybody, but given that we want to be of service, and given as entrepreneurs, we think we can help everybody, we can help the whole wide world. And yet we know we can't. We know that there's that word we all hate, niche or niche, depending on how you say it, if you're American or British. How do you deal with that potential inner conflict between wanting to serve everybody, knowing that you physically can't help everybody, and actually not everyone's a good fit for you, but then somehow doing that filtering so that you're only talking to the people who are the best fit for you and the way you do business?
Sure. Well, I've gotten over the I want to serve everybody dilemma, syndrome. So I don't have that anymore, because I've had clear experience that I'm not the right fit for. Many aren't a right fit for me, but I get it. It comes from a place of helping. You know, the filtering process, I mean, that is very personal. So you use the word niche or niche, depending on, you know, where you are. And I never niched down, if you will, because I had so many interests. I mean, if you go on Amazon, I have best-selling smoothie books.
You do.
Sold 100,000 copies, no kidding. And I am not a smoothie expert. I mean, they may see me as such, but it's not the only thing I do.
No, of course. Yeah. Well, I know when we've known each other off and on, and you know, when we talked about before we start recording this, you know, I knew you back in 2010, 2011 from Prolific Living, and you wasn't doing what you're doing now. So I can totally attest to that.
Well, it's evolved. But the thing is, not to confuse that with lack of clarity. So I am very clear whom I can serve best. Where is my sweet spot? I was having a discovery call with a past client yesterday, whom I turned down at the end because I don't think it's the right timing for him, knowing him. And so I could help him, but, you know, I was looking at it in terms of, you know, the filtering process I have is, you know, I go with the individual and the business. So for me, I may still do leadership coaching and executive coaching if the right client and the right person comes along, and we have this dynamic, this chemistry, because in my business, it makes sense to spend 2, maybe even 4 hours with someone over the course of 1 year, maybe 2 years before they ever work with me. Some of them are quicker, but I am willing to do that because it's building a relationship. So my filtering process is really, it comes down to people's character.
Okay.
And that comes from life experience, and that's how I run my business. So for me, character is a big filter. So what is the big filter for you? And then the framework, like in your business, does it make sense to spend 2 to 4 hours based on the investment people make? Or for you, does it make sense to spend an hour? But whatever you do, please don't do those 30-minute teaser sessions, because I think we can be of more service instead of just timing people into a box.
Yes.
Just getting to know them. And if you're going to spend an hour, being really genuine and present with them the whole hour. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And do you find a balance then? Because I guess, and I can understand, like, if you're charging top dollar, you know, that 2 to 4 hours, I understand that. But how do you balance that between, because there's something about we also want to encourage the right people to take action. So how do you balance that between, you're not, like, I've heard this expression, baby bird feeding, like baby bird syndrome. You know, we don't want to keep giving them little bits of our time where ultimately we need to try and lead them on to making a decision one way or the other. Or is that maybe that's never been an issue for you? I don't know.
No. And I have lots of issues, trust me. But let me see with that one. Like, I don't believe that I need to, like, you mean drop information, or like give them a little bit of taste of me?
I guess, like, you know, for one thing, it was refreshing to hear you go, do you know what? I decide based on character and how I get on with people, because that's what we do. That's actually the reality, but no one actually says that. So that was really refreshing. But how do you get past that bit where, okay, you have a conversation with somebody and it's going really well, you get to know them, and then
Right.
maybe a week later they go, actually, do you know, Farnoosh, I'd love to chat with you again, and then you have like another good time. How do you get them to help them make a decision?
Yeah, absolutely. So that comes down to navigating the conversation.
Right.
So let's give you some practical actions.
Mm-hmm.
If I am in the first conversation with that person, I never leave that conversation without clear actions. Even if the clear action is, we will leave this, there's no good fit here. I always make sure there is clear action, as opposed to, I'll think about it, I'll let you know later.
Yeah.
And none of that. So you are a leader in that conversation. So I will always know what's transpired at the end of every conversation with each person. And if I sense there is a need for further conversation, because I wouldn't want them to think they need to talk to me more in order to make a decision. I need to make sure they have everything, knowing also the personality of the person, the type of person. Some people are quick decision makers, others need more time. So understanding that for yourself, you then need to kind of like prepare them and in a way offer them, if you're willing, what they need. And sometimes that means 2 or 3 conversations. And, you know, again, if I'm willing to do that, I will do that, but I'm leading that.
Gotcha.
I am not letting someone else come back and tell me. Now, sometimes that happens, you know, and I have to decide whether I'm willing to do that or not. So I don't know if I answered your question, though.
No, that does. I think so. And I think the answer I'm getting to that is about boundaries. And I think it's an important point is, even in those initial discovery call phases, you are stepping up as the expert and the leader. And that happens a lot with what I do with the book stuff, is people want to know about, what are my next steps? And so that's where you do step up and show your expertise in whatever that realm is. No, definitely. Speaking of...
Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
I wanted to add something that's even more practical, maybe, but I was thinking, you know, to help someone come to a decision. So again, I have to hit that balance to where, if they're a quick decision maker, I know I can challenge them. If they're a slow decision maker, which I've learned to pick up using a tool called DISC, we can reference that in your notes. It's
perfect.
I think is fabulous. But if they're slower decision makers, then I don't challenge them, because they don't respond about the challenge. I go along with them. But in all of those, I'm the leader in that conversation, like I said. So for instance, if you know, we come to a point in that conversation, I will say, you know, John, we've had a great conversation here. I've learned about your challenges and your goals. I feel highly confident I can help you. Would you like to explore how that might look? Okay. So then we're going into the conversation. Now, if he says no, I am going to address objections, or I must have misread him. Yes. You know, and asking permissions along the way. So there is words and questions and things you can say in a dialogue that guides someone along. You're still a leader, but you're not pushy. You are being of service because you are helping them. And if you feel you can help John, you need to say so.
Absolutely. No, you're quite right. Because otherwise you're doing them a disservice by not doing that. Sure. Absolutely. No, that's perfect. Okay, so that does answer my question. Okay. I'm very aware of time, and I have a quick book related question, because as I mentioned, in all of October we are focusing very specifically on the head junk around writing your book. So given that you're just about to publish your very next book, and this is not your first rodeo, I am sure yes. So I'm sure some of our listeners and viewers, depending on, because it goes out in different formats, would love to hear your maybe challenges, how you overcome them, your experience, because we both know that writing books can be hard, but equally I personally believe it's as hard as we let it be. So what's your experience been like writing this book and previous books, and how did you overcome the junk in your head?
So much. Okay, I have to kind of like summarize it. I mean, first of all, don't say writing books is hard. Like, even saying that to your brain, all of a sudden is hard. It's like saying doing push-ups is hard. Yeah, but do we have to say it? Because that's just gonna make it worse. Don't say that. Writing books, you know, I'm gonna write a book. Let's see what we need to do to make it happen. I really believe with books, the desire and the timing has to be right. And
Gotcha.
I believe you know what that is. So if
Mm.
you're going to write a book because somebody out there said you should write a book,
Oh, yeah.
or you should write a book so you can have it as a speaking, as
Yeah.
your business card for speaking,
Mm.
then you're going to be miserable writing that book because
Yeah.
it's not coming from inside of you. So
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
in the Stephen King camp, and you have to read On Writing, which is
On Writing's amazing. I love that book.
it's
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
I cry every time I read it. Anyway,
Oh.
but the point is, it has to come. If you
Mm.
cannot come lightly to the blank page, right?
Mm.
That's what he says. It has
Mm.
to come from deep inside.
Mm.
So you have to want to say something.
Yes.
Something. I don't care what it is. Fiction, horror, business, jokes, but you have to want to do it. And so if that's not in place, we're not going anywhere. I mean, you can still write books, but I'm imagining we're writing books we're passionate about, and we can, like, you know, go shout out from the rooftops.
Yeah.
So, but then the writing process, Elle, I think that's so personal. My apprentice
True.
wrote her book. You know, I spit out this book in 1 month because I was so ready
Really?
to write it. But
Wow.
it was the first version, which Stephen King has a specific name for it. I won't say it on your podcast, but that's the first draft.
Yes.
Okay, this is nothing like the first draft.
Of course not. No.
The work comes later, but
Yeah.
you need to start the writing, and I think you need to
Yeah.
give yourself permission to be messy.
Yes.
Far from perfect.
Yes.
Just to say what you want to say. Like, you need to be typing so fast you can't keep up with yourself because you have something to say. And yes, it's helpful to have an outline first. I think we did have an outline for this, but way before all of that, there was that desire to write this.
Yes.
The timing, I need to do this now.
Yeah.
And just basic idea what I am going to say and who needs to pick up this book, who's my ideal reader.
Yes.
If you can just get clear on those, I think you'll get going.
That's good advice. And I as an aside, I personally hate the word should as well. I've been having conversations just this week when one person said, yeah, well, somebody said I should do it. And I'm like, no. So I agree with you completely. And also
maybe you should, but let's explore whether you want.
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, definitely. And this whole idea, I mean, we're on exactly the same page, no pun intended, because, you know, that first draft, I mean, I would be horrified if anybody read any of my first drafts of anything.
Yes.
You know, the real, I mean, it's funny, I find the first quarter of every book, the bit, once I get the first quarter done, it's easy because you're on a roll then. And I always underestimate how much time it takes for getting that first draft done to get to the end point, which is a whole other conversation. But no, totally. I mean, yeah, just get the words out there.
I love talking about writing and publishing. So if you want to hit me up later, we can explore that at length.
Yeah.
And NaNoWriMo is coming up in November. So.
Yes, well, that's why we're dealing with the head junk in October to help people. So I'm doing a group version of Rent a Boss where we're going to get together in November. So why in a lead up to that. That's why it was perfectly timed. It wasn't my idea. One of my sales coach, it was her idea. I have to give a hat tip to. But yeah, that's the timing of it. But I also think as well, NaNoWriMo, I like breaking the rules around NaNoWriMo because NaNoWriMo says you should write 50,000 words and you should not start a single word until after November the 1st. But I like breaking the rules. And we're about to get interrupted by lots of noisy children. Well, they're not going to come in, but the dogs. Can you hear the dogs right now?
No, don't worry about it, Elle.
Okay, that's fine. They're going completely bananas because the kids are stood at the front door waiting for my husband to come and let them all in.
It's all right. It's all
crazy.
Good. It's all good. Well, good luck with all the work around getting ready for NaNoWriMo. I've never done it.
Thank you. I've published like 5 novels and I've never written any of them in November, but there we are. That's an aside.
That is brilliant. Very nice to know.
Yeah. But anyway, listen, before we wrap this all up, we need to give you the opportunity, tell people a little bit more. Well, we've already seen your cover. We need to tell people where they can find you. And I think you mentioned there's some special pricing on the hardcover version at the moment.
Yes, there is. So this is soft cover. This is the advanced ARC version. And it comes out in hardcover first. And I believe Amazon has the best hardcover deals in the US and maybe even elsewhere. But Barnes & Noble also carries it. Or they can just go to Skyhorse. Or they can just come to farnooshbrock.com.
There we go.
See everything about the book. And I hope that you reach out to me and ask me a question about this, or just start a conversation, because the book, I think is brilliant. Of course, I wrote it.
I'm really enjoying it too.
Yeah, but I think that more than anything, I hope we've inspired you to shift that conversation,
yes,
and your own inspiration on what you're doing, and how much better it could be when you come from a place of serving, and really, really serve the world with all you are offering. So that's my biggest hope.
Absolutely, I hope so too. So repeat the website again. I will put it in the show notes.
Sure. It's my full name, farnooshbrock.com.
Brilliant. We'll make sure, but like I say, it will be in the show notes. If anybody can't spell, because I'm terrible at spelling, we shall make sure we put it in the show notes and in the YouTube description and such like. So that's all very exciting. But it's been my absolute pleasure to chat with you today. I'm so excited. And if people have questions, they can reach out to you, and that'd be really. We could have. Do you know what'd be really fun on the side? Is after it's, because it comes out November the 2nd, I believe.
November the 6th. Yes.
6th. I was almost there. But it'd be really fun when they have a follow-up episode, maybe later in the year or early next year, and see some of those conversations that have happened as a result of that book. That would be really fun to see. We'll pencil that one in for after Christmas, maybe. But
sure, Elle. Such a pleasure to be your first guest. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.